Hi, I'm Steve.
And I'm Ed.
We're the 6'5 guys. Welcome. And what we're going to do today is provide a after-action report for the JC Steel Summer Shootout for 2014 that was held in Prescott, Washington.
And this will be a much better after-action report because we actually came home placing in the match.
Yeah, so take a look at this picture here, guys. Here you'll see us holding up our plaques. So in first place was Jason Aubin, who's also a shooter here in the Northwest. And Ed placed second, and I placed third. And there's a story behind that.
There is. There is. Learn to shoot your pistol.
There you go. Before you actually get into the details of the match, you know, we did shoot a little bit of video about our trip out there. Wanted to share a few of those details. So why don't you just take a look at this footage coming up. This is us just taking off, leaving the area in which we live. Actually drove over to Ed's place, and then we got into the match RV and headed out. So why don't we pick it up from there, and then we'll be right back. All right, it's the guys here, 6'5 guys, just left home, and we are on the road to, I think it's called the JC Steel Summer Shootout.
Yep.
Out in Prescott, Washington, actually it's near the Jubilee Youth Ranch. So it definitely should be a fun match.
It's going to be warm, probably about 90 degrees, although a few days prior it was 108. I could not imagine.
And you were saying that that's actually hotter than it was in Dubai.
That day, it was Dubai was 106. At the Jubilee Youth Ranch, it was 2 degrees hotter.
Okay,
that's hot.
Yeah, definitely stay hydrated. I brought my 55 SPF sunblock.
Yes, I'll be using some of that. Thank you in advance.
All right, we'll check in here a little bit later.
Sounds good. Yeah, well, yesterday.
So we just stopped off here in Cle Elum at Three Forks and grabbed some breakfast, and we lucked out. Well, actually, you kind of lucked out because you already had a call that your back order came in for 8-pound jug of Varget.
Yep, Varget,
unobtainium.
Yes, gold dust. It might as well have been gold dust.
And surprise, surprise! I walk in, and he said he had 5 1-pounders of H4350, and it was with mine if I wanted it. So yeah,
not bad.
Lucked out. So I am sitting good right now. I think we're both pretty well set with powder components.
Yeah. Well, we could use some more 130 VLDs.
130 VLDs, yeah.
Definitely looking for those.
But our practice loads are pretty good. Shooting the 123 CNRs, we both got a couple thousand of those.
Yeah, and they're readily available.
Yeah.
So I hope one day we'll look back at this and think, boy, remember when there was like a supply shortage?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait till you get back to the day where you can wait till you get down to your last 2 pounds of powder, and you know you can order an 8-pounder from multiple sources.
So every time I come out towards Eastern Washington, I like stopping at that Three Forks reloading store. It's, what was the guy's name?
Chris. Chris is the one. Real nice, friendly guy. So maybe little plugs for Three Forks and in Cle Elum. If you're ever going over the pass, definitely stop by Cle Elum and visit Three Forks. Definitely recommend them.
And he does do back orders. He actually has a manual list he keeps in Excel, and I double checked. I'm still on there for an 8-pound jug of 4350. So yeah, good guy.
Yeah, good guy. So just look him up. It's Three Forks Reloading in Cle Elum, Washington. And I tell you, they have. So we'll obviously do a little transition on that. So they're definitely worth stopping in because I would say that their depth of product is probably more than you'll see when you go into a Cabela's or any of these places. So definitely worth taking the exit here on Cle Elum and stop by for lunch or dinner and stop by Three Forks.
Yeah, he is very well stocked as far as reloading and ammo, particularly reloading. If you're into reloading, I can't think of very many stores within driving distance that has the variety and level of stuff in inventory than his shop. So.
Definitely.
All right, we'll check in later on the road.
All right, take care, folks.
Welcome back. So we're going to talk a bit about the match RV and when we arrived there, and
that was part of the adventure. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so I really came to appreciate the match RV. We left a day early, and we got there with plenty of time to check our zeros.
Yeah,
and we also ran into another shooter from Oregon.
Damn.
And we had time to basically shoot some pistol, and we worked with
checked our zeros.
Checked our zeros and everything. But what was really nice is we were able to camp out at the shooting site, and since we were in a very, very remote area, the stars, were just incredible.
Yeah.
And you really begin to appreciate why people like to live out in remote areas, because when you look up, when you live in the city or more suburban areas, you just don't see the stars like you do out
it was unbelievable. It's like sitting under a planetarium. Really.
Yeah, it was just incredible. So we just had a really nice night of camping, and of course when we woke up, it was kind of like the match came to us. It wasn't like
you step outside our door and
it's like you step outside the door and there's your match. So again, really good reason.
It was good to also be able to kind of cook up a nice hearty breakfast in the morning.
Right.
Eggs, bacon, apple strudel, coffee, milk, all that sort of good stuff.
Yeah,
so
we definitely had a good time. So so we're going to bring that RV whenever we can. So let's talk about some of the stages.
So there was basically 7 stages, and the way it was designed. 7 rifle stages, 2 pistol stages.
Yes, correct.
The rifle stages were first, and then after we had the rifle stages, we broke for lunch. Very nice lunch that was hosted by JC Steel or Jake.
Jake
had sandwiches and chips and nice cold drinks, which was very appreciated on a hot day like that.
Yeah, and I went through, this was 96 degrees, and I went through a gallon of Gatorade in just that day. And so you can't, it's worth the wait to pack up the liquids, because if you run short, and I know you're running a little short yourself.
Yeah, actually, I had a 1 liter Camelback, and then I topped it off with an extra bottle of water, and I was running dry by stage 5.
Yeah.
But when you're hot like that, if you're not staying hydrated, it'll suck the energy out of you like nothing flat.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling well, why don't you talk a little bit about stage 1? We do have the match stages. We'll kind of read them briefly, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we did.
Yeah, and so stage 1 is one of those stages where our barricade practice really paid off. Yeah, because it was shot from a barricade. And
unfortunately, we don't have footage or photos. We have footage that we'll share with you guys here coming up for stages 2, 3, 5, and 7. So,
essentially, it was a 12-round stage, and we had a target at 350 yards, and I only missed 1 target. I almost thought I was going to clean the stage. But I felt very sure and very confident when I was shooting off the barricade.
Yeah, I think you started out very strongly. You were the first person in our squad to shoot that, and I think you definitely set a good pace and set the bar pretty high for everyone. And I came in right behind you and did not do that well, actually. So I started off poorly on stage 1, which was, actually the barricade. I think I did pretty well off the tire. So we had a small little barricade that was set up. There were certain areas that were painted white that you had to shoot, I believe, 1 or 2 rounds off of each of those white areas, and then 3 off the tire. And for me, coming off that stage, I had to pretty much clear my mind and kind of get back into the game. I think I was on autopilot, and being the first stage in the morning, didn't have my mind in the game. But I think things progressively started to get better for me after stage 1.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, you definitely. I mean, you finished. I mean, pretty strong, and particularly I think stage 6 and 7. Yeah, you did really well on that. So then I guess let's move on to stage 2.
Yeah. So why don't we do have a little bit of footage. We can talk a little about this as we're looking at that video.
Stage 2. 10 rounds on targets ranging from 211 yards to 550 yards. Was pretty happy. I only dropped one target on this, and it was a relatively easy target.
I think it was the wind.
Maybe. I mean, I shot right over the top of it, and one thing I've noticed is, I need to pay some more attention to my rear bag technique, because I think I'm really squeezing it more than I have to. And so sometimes I think I'm perhaps letting go and sending the shot high.
Yeah.
When we were doing the sight-in at Sage Flats, I was really just dead on at there was like a 550-yard target, and then just out of nowhere I start sending the shots over the target. Yeah. So I think definitely it's the
here's where we're looking at it right now, which is what's the distance on this target?
So the distance on this one was 300, which, I mean, that's shot over the top. I mean, that's just, and even that one was a little high. That was a bit of a lucky shot. Although I have to say that, my shots at 460 and 550, I was pretty happy with that.
Now, target 3 I didn't capture on camera. This is all handheld, so you can imagine in bright sunlight trying to find these targets zoomed in on a little camcorder was a little bit challenging. But yeah, I think, Ed, you did a really good job on this. And I really like this stage for the fact that you had different distances to deal with, right?
Exactly.
You had to either dial or hold. I actually dialed for most of the match, all my elevations.
Yeah, so I dialed elevation as well, and I held for windage. I mean, the only time I dialed in any initial windage was when we had those targets at 1,100 and 1,300 yards. Yeah. I just dialed in my initial wind call.
Now, this did pretty well in this one. You'll see Ed hits this. So 11 o'clock there, but then
the next one, was nice and center punched. It was. So pretty happy with that. Again, shooting my new Arbros rifle, shooting the 130 VLDs, which was very, very happy.
Now, what happened here is this will actually end abruptly because we had a train come down the track, and anytime we heard a train coming, we immediately ceased fire.
That's correct. That's correct. So once the train went by, we just picked up where the clock was and then finished it. So again, I was pretty happy with that stage.
Okay, well, why don't we take a look and see how I did on this one. All right, so I started stage 2, and I was really looking forward to the stage when I read it because all these distances seemed like stuff that we had done before and had done before well. It's just that it was in wind.
Right.
And in fact, I started off the stage very well, hitting target 1 at 211, target 2 at 300. Target 3 at 386, actually 2 misses. And the last one at 550, which is a square up on the ledge, I got the second hit, missed the first. And the reason why, particularly on the last one, was I could see that the wind had actually pushed me off. I'd actually hit left of the target. So I made that correction on the follow-up shot. So I think for me, the key takeaway for this was I was not planning for any wind. In fact, there was wind on some of those targets that blew me off course because I felt like each shot that I fired, it was a nice clean shot. The shot broke right on target. So for me, that was the takeaway.
Yeah, so for you, wind. For me, I mean, really, my shots went over the top of the target, and where I missed was a 300-yard, pretty generous target. So I think for me, it's just really, bag discipline and just making sure I'm not squeezing up hard on the bag, because you just tend to relax your hand when the shot goes off.
Now, it was also nice, we talked a little bit about the dust, having that nice midway shooting mat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
even though you ended up carrying it most of the time,
yeah.
It was worth its weight in gold because, it did mitigate a little bit of that dust that got kicked up by our muzzle brakes.
Yeah, it was funny because when we were looking, when they were looking to squad people up, I just said, "Hey, I have a shooting mat." And
a lot of people said, "Okay,
yeah." A lot of people wanted to join our squad. We actually had to turn people away. But yeah, I can tell you in an environment like that, that's another lesson too. There is some equipment, like a shooting mat, that is definitely worth carrying.
Yeah, and there was a lot of thistle or bushes out there that had those prickly barbs that get into your socks. So it was nice to actually have something to throw onto the ground.
Your socks. I mean, I felt that when you lay down, it like penetrates your T-shirt and like digs into your skin. Yeah. if they were just in my socks, I think I'd be pretty happy.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about stage 2. This was the long shot. Stage 3. That was the long shot, right?
Yeah. I mean, so you had a target at 1,160 yards. Mm-hmm. And then you also had a target at 1,300 yards. We had 5 shots at each target, hit or miss, and it counted for 1.5 points per hit.
Yeah. Now, for folks that don't know how far that is, I do believe we have a little bit of video here that we can show you just how far those targets are. So they were, again, those yardages were what?
1160,
and 1300.
1300.
1300.
Yeah,
okay.
1300. And the interesting thing about the terrain, I mean, you'll see from the video, you'll see how the river comes around. That's the Snake River, and so the wind just goes up against
the face of that cliff.
Yeah, it goes up against the face of the cliff, and we've shot there before, and we knew that out at that distance you had to dial it down a bit, about half a mil.
About a half mil dialed down from what you would calculate your dome to be.
And the 800, the targets in the 800 yard, give or take, it's usually about 0.3 mils. And Jake, who runs JC Steel, he said he'll tell people to do that, and they won't believe him. They're like, no, I mean, come on, how can no one do that? But it really does, and that's really tricky.
What made this particularly tough, and again, we've shot at these distances before at this location, is the terrain doesn't give you a lot of feedback.
Yes.
There's so much dense foliage around the target. You don't see any bullet splash. There's no dust getting kicked up. So if you miss, you really, unless you can see your trace, you really don't know where you're at.
Right. I mean, you then just start bracketing the target and hope that you get a hit. I mean, in another match, in the February match, there was a 1,300 yard target, and I just started bracketing the target, top left corner, bottom left corner, and just by sheer luck, bottom left corner hit, and I got 4 subsequent hits on the target. But it could have just as well been that I didn't find something that worked.
Now, what was the recap on this? How did you do on this stage?
No, I only got like 1 hit. I mean,
on which target?
Horrible. It was at like 1160.
Okay.
And that was my first shot, so I figured, wow, I'm just gonna,
all right. You're in the game.
I figured I am in the money.
Yeah.
But then the last 4 shots, I mean, I had no idea where it went. And again, the
wind shifts.
It was very shifty, very switchy.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
But
same thing happened to me. I got first round hit on the first target, missed the next 4, moved to the far target at 1,300, and I lucked out there because I actually saw a little bit of splash.
Oh, good for you, yeah.
And realized where the wind was blowing at that moment. Actually got 2 back-to-back hits on the 1,300, which is good, and you can hear the guys cheering in the background. And I thought, all right, I got this last shot, and I actually missed it. My belief is the wind changed, it shifted again on me, and didn't know where it was at, and I missed it.
So let's, I mean, again, stage 3 was a very difficult stage, I mean, for most of the competitors. I think you said you hit 3 total on that stage. I mean, that's probably in the top. I mean, shooters I know Jason, who won the match, I think he only hit 3. So you can feel pretty good about that.
Yeah,
definitely. So then we can move here to stage 4. Again, this is another area where practice paid off. This was a rooftop.
And we actually practice on rooftops.
Yeah, we actually practice on rooftops. Here's a quick little snippet here of our rooftop practice, and we also have another video on equipment where we go into a little further detail on what we built up. But yeah, again, I approached it feeling very, very confident because I knew exactly what I needed to do. One thing that was a little different about that rooftop is it was constructed a little differently than our...
This one had cleats, and it didn't have the opposite side of the roof to rest your tripod on.
Yeah.
So the way we practiced it was not the same.
Well, and so what it told me is you have to practice for a roof that might have that opposite angle.
That's missing.
Yeah, that's missing. And so what I did is I just put a sandbag underneath my rifle like I was shooting off a barricade. And that actually worked out quite well. So it was, again, very steady.
And what was the distance on that target?
It was, so we had targets at 300 yards, 525 yards, and 850 yards.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact scores here, but I did very well on that. I was very happy coming away from that stage. You recall how you did on that?
Yeah, I think I did fairly well as well. I wish I would have kept my score sheet or taken a photo of it.
Yeah.
But again, what I found, or my recollection of what I took away from that stage, was there were some elevation changes, which because we didn't have our tripods deployed on this and actually had to use a bag up front, it required me to actually use my pump pillow for my rear bag to get some rear support. So,
but see that's interesting. That talks about our different techniques.
Yeah.
On my rooftop technique, I kind of get on there. I guess doggy style is the only way to describe it. But of course, people,
on your knees.
Yeah. Of course, people made fun of me. But hey, I was hitting steel.
Yeah.
But I get that pump pillow underneath the rear end of that rifle, and I felt on that rooftop that I had really good elevation control, and I could accommodate those significant changes in elevation.
Right.
It wasn't so on stage number 6, which we'll talk about later on, where that was a real problem that I had.
So let's talk about stage 5. And stage 5 was an interesting stage. So there was a spinner. There was a spinning target that you needed to get spinning, and that was good for 5 points. And you got that thing spinning.
I did, yes. For me, it was, and I played around with that before in shooting at spinners. And what I learned before is it comes down to timing. So as that plate swings up toward you and starts swinging back away from you, you want to shoot it as it's moving away from you. And if you hit it consistently in the right spot, timing your shots, you can actually get that off. We had a max of 14 rounds to do that?
Actually 10 rounds on the spinner.
10 rounds on the spinner.
You can do 10 rounds on the spinner. And I mean, that I know I didn't get it to spin, and that was probably the most miserable 10 shots I had fired in the whole match.
Now you know how I felt shooting the pistol spinner.
Because the muzzle brake, just the dirt that it kicked up.
Oh, right.
I mean,
take a look at this, guys. I actually have it on camera, and I was actually sitting about 8 yards from you, and I was covered in dust.
I mean, it would have been better if somebody just threw handfuls of dirt at me. I think I would have probably had...
And into your action.
Yeah, I think I would have had less dirt, and
right.
that just... had me thinking I can't wait until Steve gets his suppressor so we can both start shooting suppressed.
Yeah, well, I had the same problem. I was right there. I believe I went. Was it before you?
Yeah, you went first. Yeah,
but I was covered in dust. Yeah, it was not fun. The know your limits, or actually try your luck rack was pretty interesting, which was different than Know Your Limits.
Yeah, I mean, if you missed, you didn't lose all your points. So that encouraged people to be a little more aggressive. I know I was, because otherwise, when I'm in a situation where I'm going to lose all my points for missing, I'm gonna play it conservatively.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that format, and I think each of us we only dropped one. We only missed once.
Yeah.
And so I think we scored. Overall, I think, really good stage for you, stage 5.
And stage 6 as well, which was a high angle shot.
Right.
So I think a lot of guys were using tripod on that, and that distance was what?
It was 138 yards.
That's right. Okay.
But because of the angle,
it was more like 120.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, if you zero for 100 yards, you were on the.
Yeah, the targets are big enough to use your 100-yard zero, but I think when we got to stage 6 and 7, the wind had really kicked up.
Yes,
I don't know if you noticed that, because I know we had actually used tripods as most people on this stage, but you could actually feel the wind push you off target.
You could. Yeah, so we both used our tripods with the hog saddle, and that served us well. I dropped I think 2 targets. I
dropped 1.
Yeah, you dropped 1. So both good solid stages. Of course, there are some people there that cleaned it, which you're always like. I mean, those were not difficult targets. I mean, that's kind of one of those stages where you beat yourself up a bit. It's like I should not have dropped those 2 targets. I mean, they were pretty generous, but it is what it is. But definitely the hog saddle on a tripod can really steady you up.
Yeah. I carried that thing all day long, and it was gratifying to actually be able to use it.
Exactly. So then we moved on to stage 7. And stage 7 is the stage that I came away thinking I wanted to sell my rifle and take up golf, because that was it was a good stage for you.
Right.
The trouble I had is you transitioned from shooting a target way down in a canyon or valley, and then you had to transition way up, to shooting a target.
And then you had to come off to the right to another high shot.
Yeah, exactly.
And you had to do it twice, right?
Yeah.
Then you had to repeat the whole cycle.
You had to do it twice. And this is where we've talked before about you get locked into paradigms. And I was in that paradigm of wherever you set your rifle down, that's where you have to keep it. And so I was stacking rear bags, underneath me to get that low shot, and then taking them away to get the high shot. Bottom line for me, it was just a complete train wreck. But then I think you used your pump pillow.
For the shot that was down low, I actually used my pump pillow as my rear bag to get basically get it off the ground high enough to make a nice clean shot, and then I set that off to the side, grabbed my small bag for the high elevation shot. So that was what I did. But in talking with Jason after the match, he said that what he did was on that low shot, he actually took his tripod legs and moved them down the hill, because we were basically on the edge of a cliff.
Right, exactly.
So and that seemed to work for him.
Yeah, and so again, it's you don't want to get locked in that paradigm. Yeah. And it seemed, because I asked, there was another shooter too who told me the same thing. He said, "Oh, you see that little hump of dirt right there? Well, what I did for the high targets is I just placed my bipod there, and then for the lower, and it was after the fact, it made common sense. It made total sense. But when you're on the clock or whatever, you don't always think like that. So after the rifle stages, you came away feeling pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah. And I'd found out, after the match, that coming out of the rifle stages, I was in second place, right behind Jason. Mm-hmm. And then we got to pistol, and things changed.
And I guess I was in third. I didn't realize that. Yeah, because I came off of the rifle just thinking I completely stunk up the joint. But
it was challenging. There were challenging conditions.
It was, and I guess maybe that's a lesson too. I mean, don't beat yourself up, because I was just
I was really feeling down in the dumps with that. But the pistol stage came, and fortunately that's one area where I do relatively well. And in some of the matches we've been shooting, the regional matches, and also in this particular match, for a lot of the folks that have been shooting long-range precision, they really haven't done a whole lot of pistol. So, that
we're seeing that become a little bit more prevalent.
Yeah, and so I felt pretty confident because I've done like a few IPSC type matches, and I practiced a bit. I mean, these IPSC guys just run circles around me, but at least for folks whose main focus has been on precision rifle, I can hold my own with a pistol, and so I cleaned the pistol. There were two pistols.
There were two stages. Yeah, there was the swinger is almost identical to rifle except with pistol, and you were shooting at 25 yards.
Yeah, and we were shooting at the same swinger that we had shot at with the rifle, except we got closer.
I would have loved catching this on camera, Ed, but you had sort of an emotional outburst after you got that swinger going.
Yeah, I told the target exactly what I thought of it because I was pretty mad at that target from the other stage. And I let a few F-bombs fly at the target because I had dominated it, and I wanted that target to feel really.
Yeah, I felt exactly the opposite of you because I got that thing going, really close.
Yeah.
Probably within about 15 degrees of flipping over, but it just was not happening for me. I learned after the fact. Jake had given us some coaching points of one technique that works particularly well if you're a quick shot is to double tap it. You hit it on the bottom so it swings away, and there's a top lollipop. It's a little bit shorter and smaller.
And smaller, yeah.
But if you can pop that up as it's towards you or swinging away, right? You can basically double tap it top, bottom, and it'll flip.
Yeah, I would definitely have to practice that a bit because it is a smaller target, and at 25 yards you could miss it. But that swinger had some pretty good bearings on it.
Yeah.
So you didn't lose a whole lot of energy if you even waited just to shoot the bottom one. And I got into a really good rhythm. I was just shooting 9mm, and I got into a really good rhythm. But I was shooting my Glock 34. But that spinner, if you had a 45, you were definitely in better shape. And so actually I found out that the Glock 41 has been out for about 6 months, and that's basically the I guess it's as close to a 45 caliber model 34 as you can
competition
get.
Gun.
Yeah. And so I can't wait to get that, and of course we'll.
You got your order in.
Yeah, I got my order in, and I'm going to put the Dawson Precision sights on there.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited about that.
So I was running, my Glock 17. I have an aim-point H1 on it, and it works well. But I think when we got to the next pistol stage, this was the Texas Star, and we've got some footage here that we can share. Basically, Ed cleaned that.
Yes.
You totally own that stage, and I came in right after you.
Yeah.
And I had walked into that stage with kind of a game plan of how I was going to deal with the Texas Star and all of that. But what happened, as you can see in the footage, as soon as I got off the first shot, my gun jammed. Right now, how often does a Glock 17 jam? Well, almost never.
Yeah.
I've owned that pistol for 3 years now. It's never jammed on me ever. That was
what do you think happened?
It was the first time. I got a stovepipe. I don't know. So I basically, went through a clearing drill. I ejected the mag.
Yeah.
Racked the slide, popped the mag back in, racked it again. And it's not. I don't really practice that drill a lot because it never jams.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So I lost a good 10 seconds, as you can see in the video. I lost a good 10 seconds. That had me flustered, so my game plan went out the window. Next up was I knocked down the targets, and then I dealt with the Texas Star and basically proceeded to get that thing spinning wildly. And once the thing got spinning back and forth, basically, I was completely flustered.
Yeah, you were.
And I should have just waited for those targets to come up. Right, it pauses for a second before it drops back in the other direction. And I was shooting at it while it was moving at its fastest, and I proceeded to expend all of my ammo and ran out of time.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a technique with the Texas Star, and fortunately, I mean, I don't know, maybe a year ago, you know, you sit late at night, you just watch stuff on YouTube, and I just watched people shooting the Texas Star, and I saw that there was a real strategy to shoot it in such a way that it creates the least amount of imbalance.
Right.
So when I went up there, I knew exactly how I was going to shoot it, and you had a minute to shoot the 4 silhouette targets, and then the Texas Star, and I did it in 20 seconds. So I was really happy with that. So I had plenty of time to spare. But yeah, that stage really worked. Again, I cleaned both of them, so that allowed me to
take second place.
Yeah, take
second place in the match.
So I got a bigger plaque. But hey, you know,
good for you. I'm glad that. The fact that we both placed, you know, it was a nice way to finish up the day. And
yeah, and the fact that both of us are placing in matches, I'm really happy with that, because it just shows that both of us are simultaneously benefiting from our practice regimen. So I think we're
need more
really
pistol.
Happy.
So
we'll definitely work on that. And I think for me, again, I've got a new rifle, so still trying to work out some of the kinks. I mean, we just got done shooting today, and I've got one load that with the 130 Burger 130 VLDs that is just an absolute tack driver, and then a practice load with 123 CNARs, which I just can't get to shoot decently to save my life. So we're probably gonna have to do an OCW workup on that and get that going.
All right, guys. Well, we had a great time. Hopefully, you enjoyed listening to us drone on about the match and some of the key takeaways. If you have any matches you've attended and have any pictures, videos, or comments to share, post them up and let us know.
Yeah, or even comments. I mean, you saw some of our videos, so if you have any comments about, you know, stuff we could be doing differently, that would be great.
Yeah,
that would be terrific.
Make sure you share, like, and subscribe to the video, and love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So remember, life's an adventure.
Stay on target.